Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics FPL. Today's video is going to be my Game Week 20 team selection, and I'll be actually looking at how to recover realistically from a very poor Game Week 19. I'm probably going to have something like an 80% red arrow, and that's simply because I don't own assets like Shaw or Kane, who did exceptionally well this week. Not only did I captain Mitrovic, which I think was a little bit of a nice positive net benefit versus the Haaland ownership, I did struggle by going for a double free transfer away from Darwin, now into Trent. Even though Trent, I think, is an asset I really like, I have to say watching that Liverpool game back versus Brentford, first of all, showed me that Brentford are a very capable team, and I can see exactly why that they did so well versus Tottenham as well the week previous. But more specifically, how poor this Liverpool team is, the actual pace, the physicality have continued to drop off. And I think the reason why I went for Trent is because I think the fixtures are still good, and his offensive edge and his offensive utility still looks very high. You could see him even get the assist versus with Darwin in the FA Cup game, and I think still Trent is showing signs of brilliancy. So I hope that Trent can actually redeem himself as an asset for me, because he is still lagging behind very massively versus Luke Shaw, who's someone that I've evaded, and I'd probably say is a huge mistake for my part since the World Cup restart. I felt like missing him in Game Week 17. I've always felt like I probably didn't transfer him in a week late, and I think I'm probably hurting him more. I've decided to hurt a little bit more again this week by going for Stones, and the reason why Stones is interesting to me is because he is probably the most nailed player in the City team. Rico Lewis and Walker have competition in that right back position, and now we're not even really considering Cancelo as a top 2 player in that right back position. He could be maybe that secondary left back when Rico Lewis can play, but I don't think we've seen that structure. It seems like Pep, of course, much prefers something like an Ake plus Rico Lewis, and then if Walker is also close to being first choice, then you could see something like Walker and Ake, which is much more defensive, and potentially what we'll see being utilized in these games where he has to play versus a Heung-min Son, for example, in the Tottenham game, or even versus United versus a Marcus Rashford. So that will be very interesting to see how Pep tactically adjusts there, because Walker and Cancelo could be played once again, but the fact that Walker and Cancelo were not played, specifically in that Chelsea game, does show me that I think Cancelo has fallen down in the pecking order, and I think he has to be transferred out this week. Trippier is still a fantastic asset, but I think going versus a Fulham team that have always excited from the attacking edge, I don't really see the value of a Botman transfer. I know a lot of people like Botman in the future weeks, but I don't think I'd be going for that transfer now. If anything, I'd probably go for a United defender. There might even be an opportunity for me to go from Ward to De Gea. That could be an interesting transfer. I'm not really sure whether I'll actually execute that, but I think that's a good way to kind of hedge versus Shaw. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. I do think Trent is someone that I'm going to start for the next few weeks, even though the fixtures aren't perfect for Liverpool to get a clean sheet on paper, just because the offensive edge is there, and I'm hoping that maybe we'll see more goal involvements from him. He actually got his first assist, like official assist this season in the Premier League, and I'm probably excited to actually see what Trent will bring ahead of us in the future. I also think Matip and Konate is actually quite a good centre-back partnership, even though you've suffered the Van Dijk injury. It can't really get worse for Liverpool, and that's kind of my logic for going for Trent. I'm hoping that things will improve. As far as the midfield, though, I will be sticking with the midfield. De Bruyne, Martinelli, Rashford, and Saka. These are all players that I picked specifically from Game Week 17, anticipating this early double game week for City, hoping that it happened. And Tottenham and City didn't really fail us in the FA Cup, so therefore we have this double game week fixture where we get to enjoy KDB. And the nice thing about KDB is he gets rid of that sort of rotation aspect, where when you're going for Mahrez, Grealish, or even Foden, who has fallen down the pecking order as well, you're looking at assets who could be rotated game to game, and that's not even necessarily because Pep might not think they're first choice or second choice. It's just simply because De Bruyne is probably entrusted to play 90 minutes a game, and he's getting rested in these cup games, whereas you're seeing these City players being thrown in. For example, Mahrez is someone who always is utilized in the Champions League, and I think Pep really prefers him in that type of fixture there, but you will see him rested in the Premier League, and I think Mahrez right now is the most informed player from a goals and assists aspect of FPL from the midfield position, but KDB is someone that I'm happy to keep this week, and I'm probably going to shift him off straight to Salah the next week anyways. And the reason why I'm not going for Shaw as well is because Game Week 21 is very tough for United. They get to play versus Arsenal, and that makes me a little bit more positive about going for someone like Stones, because Stones has Game Week 21 versus Wolves. And so if I'm going to waste a transfer on De Bruyne to Salah, then I actually need a very strong team in Game Week 21. And I still think, as I said, Stones has a better fixture than Shaw. So that's kind of why I've picked Stones for the short term, but I actually could move Stones to Shaw in Game Week 22. As far as Martinelli, Rashford, Saka, these are all very informed assets. Nothing to really say here. Of course, there's an opportunity to maybe go from Saka to Odegaard in the future if I actually want to save a little bit more money in the team and maybe upgrade Mitrovic or Martial in the forward positions. And that's exactly who I have in the forwards. The forwards that I'm actually going to play are Mitrovic and Martial. These are players that I have actually transferred in recently in terms of Mitrovic and then kept in terms of Martial. Martial. Martial is an asset that I'm probably looking to sell in the near future as well. With the Weghorst news being very close to announce, I'm not actually sure at this time, of recording, whether he will have joined United officially, but Martial is probably only going to get limited minutes in these two fixtures. I think maybe we'll see Weghorst playing Crystal Palace, but maybe Martial will come on as a sub as well. We also don't know if Weghorst is going to immediately start for Erik ten Hag, so we'll also see what happens there. But I think this is kind of the end of Martial, but it's nice to actually have him and own him and play him in this double game week, even though the minutes might be limited. As far as Erling Haaland, though, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to triple captain him. For me, I think Haaland is simply put a fixture-proof player. We've also seen that Tottenham have actually conceded a lot of attacks from the central positions. They've given away a lot of goals lately to players like Tony, who had a fantastic game, and I'm seeing and expecting much of the same from Erling. What we saw in the Chelsea game was, of course, a blank, but I think Erling was still very, very close, had still some great opportunities to score, specifically in the first half, where he had a very good one-touch and almost finish. But here, when you look at the opportunity to go for Haaland double game week before any kind of cup fixtures ruin him, or before we actually have news or sight of an injury, I think this is a great opportunity to just bank in on him. And maybe, of course, people don't actually believe in how previous fixtures worked and whether that contextualizes games, but United versus City was a very comfortable fixture for Haaland. I don't think he's afraid of the big moment whatsoever. It's a great fixture to actually triple captain him, and I'm going to take this opportunity as soon as possible. I also think that Rashford, when we're talking about him in a future double game week, could also be a very, very interesting differential captain in the future. I think a couple of people probably aren't ready for that discussion, but if you're of that mind, I was actually recommended that sort of potential very, very differential aggressive triple captain in the future if let's say United get that double game week fixture in double game week 22. So that could be an interesting fixture if you want to sidestep that Haaland captaincy overall. But with Haaland posting such great results, with City still showing very, very good underlying stats, I think it's more yes, Haaland showing a little bit of regression to the mean, but the averages and the stats and what we've seen from the eye test is there. So I think Haaland should be your triple captain pick sometime this season, whether it's early in this double game week 20 fixture or later on in game week 23 or something like that. So that's kind of my thoughts early on in terms of City, and I'm going to be going and rolling out with this game week 20 team selection unless we get some late news, and maybe I'll be only changing my Cancelo transfer away to someone like Shaw.